Hi, I'm Courtney Brooks from CMU Public Television. Every day, we're losing nature close to our homes, our quiet places where we like to escape, rejuvenate, hike, and explore. How much land have we already lost to development? How much more will we lose in the future? Tonight, we'll share with you some stories from your neighbors and communities who have found ways to protect Michigan land for future generations. They've done this with the help of Michigan land conservancies and land trusts, guaranteeing the present will last forever. Every person involved has a different motivation to protect, but they all have one goal in mind: protecting the land, water, and scenic beauty of Michigan. For many, their motivation to protect the land is their family, making sure future generations can enjoy the nature of the land as much as they have.
It was 1965 and we were graduating from Indiana University Bloomington and looking for a fun place to get away. We loved to camp. We loved the wild, so we came here.
It was just a perfect place for a honeymoon. It was just the two of us on this gorgeous bay facing west. We had great sunsets, and it was a lot of fun.
It was even much more wild than it is now. It was just so much away from our everyday world. And so we just loved to get away. My parents came up here and loved it, and they found this property and bought the initial piece, and we camped on that for many years, the whole family. Eventually, my husband and I were able to buy the property next door, so we put two of them together. Then we wanted to do something to preserve it, because the island is, of course, getting more developed. We contacted Ty Ratliff of the Little Traverse Nature Conservancy, and he came to meet with us, and we hiked over the whole property and talked about what it might mean to have a conservation easement.
We own the land, but we have given them an easement forever in this land. It never can change.
Which doesn't mean that people can't just hike all over your property, because it's not like a park, but it does preserve the property forever.
We just love it in an undeveloped state, and our kids do too. And we've got 27 acres, and we just wanted to make sure that that they and even their children someday will have a place that's truly wild to come to, because as we all know, in the big cities now, especially kids in the inner cities, don't have green opportunities.
There are other folks here on Beaver Island that are doing this now with the encouragement of the Little Traverse Nature Conservancy. They were great to work with, absolutely great people to work with.
I'm really glad. I'm glad it's going to be protected. It used to be even more, there were no houses out here. And so now that there's been some development, it feels a little different than it used to, and I'm really glad we can protect it for the boys. Ethan, our 6-year-old, said the reason he loves beaver is he's so free up here. And it's true, they go running around like little foxes all over the place out here and building things and exploring, and it's very safe. And they discover little treasures, and they don't realize they're being educated. They're just having fun, and they're learning so much. And I think part of that is because we have this large amount of protected space. And the animals are just, they're out here living pretty safe, pretty free. And so yeah, the more places that could be protected like this, it would be wonderful.
I really would encourage people to consider conservation easements if they care about the land that they have, if they love the land and want to make sure that it stays in its present form for their family and for other families for future generations. If they really care about the green spaces that are left, because once we put houses and developments and shopping centers on a piece of land, it's gone forever. And it's just so important, I think, for us to keep places as they are for the wildlife, for the vegetation, and for us to enjoy forever.
With some families, members canoed, hiked, and explored Michigan land in the early 1900s. Today, 5 generations later, the Nierheim family is doing the exact same things their ancestors did before, thanks to an easement they placed on their land.
In 1902, my grandfather, Stefan Nierheim, sailed from Norway as a young boy to live with family in Chicago. And he got a job working on a ship that sailed between Chicago and Ludington. And he became the first mate. And at Christmas, the captain, Captain Johnson, asked him, who resided in Ludington, invited him home for Christmas dinner. And he met the captain's daughter, Mabel Helena, and they were married. And he went into the lumber and coal business in Ludington with Martin Abrahamson. And he bought property here on the Paramarquette River. So we have a lot of roots here on the PM, and this property was sold when my grandfather passed on. And my wife and I were able to buy a small piece of it, and then we were able to buy another. This property that we're on right now, 60-some acres, became available. And there was talk of subdividing it. And our family got together and said, we should buy it and preserve it. We have 4 children, their spouses, and our grandchildren of 8 all love this place. It's the favorite to go to the cabin. Even grandmother, who's 90, can't wait to get here.
It's very special, emotionally, I think, to everybody. So it's in Jerry's blood because he was raised here, but we've kind of all embraced it too. So you'll see that the succeeding generations, it's been special. They've made special places too. It's wonderful, just wonderful, and the best part is it'll always be like this.
For me, I find so much peace and serenity here. It's to be able to float down the river or to kayak down the river. It's something I've done since I was a little girl. And you look around at these trees and the cedars and to be able to see white-tailed deer and turkeys everywhere. You don't see that in the city. And I find this just to be a wonderful haven and a respite away from everyday life.
We don't have a schedule here. You know, you just show up and whatever happens, happens. It's really neat because the little kids will take you anywhere on the acreage and show you Buck Creek. They'll take you all to their special places, and they know how to get there and how to get back.
We're going to Conservancies! I like to go by the river and stuff like that, and go canoeing and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Swim in the river, look at different animals and stuff, look at nature. And that's it.
I like to just go exploring and find new cool areas. I love canoeing, having campfires next to our cabin, just hanging out with your family, and jumping in the water is so refreshing.
What made this property so great is that there's a good amount of river frontage on the Pere Marquette, which is a natural because it's the only undammed river in Michigan. To protect this 60 or so acres, all of a sudden you're expanding the habitat from that property next door, either the DNR or the Forest Service land. So it really, you're only protecting 60 acres with the easement, but you're really expanding the habitat with those pieces of land nearby. It really is a legacy piece, 100 years back, 150 years back. Same people were doing the same things. So to have that legacy within the family is really a great thing.
I think that's exactly how it should be. Yeah. This is beautiful, and one of the reasons why I like it is because when I'm here I feel like I'm not connected to where I live back at home. I just feel like I'm so secluded from everything else, and I love that. Because you just feel like it's its own little area, and he's laughing at me, but no, I mean,
same thing pretty much.
I love it, so how it should be.
It was just a natural for them because their ancestors have been doing the same things, have been going up in canoes and doing the same exact thing that they're doing now, and they're passing on to generations.
Michigan Conservancies have the opportunity to protect the land in more ways besides an easement. Many groups can be involved, even educators in local communities.
We protect land in 3 different ways primarily, and one is government assist, and one's a preserve, and one is a conservation easement. And the easiest one for people to understand really is a preserve, because a preserve is what they're sort of most familiar with, because it's like a park that we hold for the public. We own the property and then manage them to have the highest amount of biological diversity of native species. A conservation easement is privately held property. It still has some of the rights reserved by the Land Conservancy so that in the future it can't be developed. But it's owned by a family, it can be transferred to another member of their family. And a government assist is a piece of property where we help some branch of government, it could be local, county, the state, acquire a piece of property that then becomes part of their park system. Any combination of tools in the toolbox can be used to get to where we ultimately want to be, which is the preservation of open and natural spaces, beautiful pieces of property like Talmadge Woods. In this case, what you have really is a conservation easement because the land is owned by the school here, by Oxbow, but you have the city having a right to have public access to this property, and both had to be preserved. So we were able to work in partnership with both. So there's some elements like a government assist, but at the same time, the nature of this backdrop provides inspiration for over 100 years for the school, remains unchanged.
There's a saying here, a common saying here in Saugatuck, that our ecology is our economy, and that's ever so true because we're one of the few, if not last remaining, harbor fronts that is natural. And that's very important because if we start developing this lakeshore, then we become like any other community on the shores of Lake Michigan, and then the draw will go away. So to keep all this beautiful land natural, it's very important to us. I was the representative for the city of Saugatuck with the Oxbow School of Art, and together we worked to actually put this land into a conservation easement.
Having this as part of my role at Oxbow to put the conservation easement in place feels really wonderful in that, while things will continue to change and evolve here at Oxbow, the property is going to remain, fairly consistent with how it looks today and continue to serve generations of artists and the community at large. We have artists coming from all across the country and even internationally, so the fact that so many folks will come here to West Michigan to create and experience this landscape is a really wonderful thing. The crow's nest, of course, I think that scene, I've seen it interpreted in so many ways by so many different types of artists, and it's continuing to captivate people and has since the school's founding. I think the lagoon is also a place of pretty high importance. You can see as you look around the shore of the lagoon that there are people right now painting, so it continues to serve as inspiration. But I think even beyond that, the fact that there's this piece of property that's untouched and it kind of in many ways feels as though you're stepping back in time, I think that really provides this remarkable place for artists to explore and create without judgment and without the constraints and pulls that so many of us have in our daily lives. Also, we feel really good about the fact that so much of the riverfront coming into Saugatuck Douglas will remain untouched because of the easement as well.
What's so neat about Talmadge Woods is it's really a peninsula that stuck out between the Kalamazoo River and the lakeshore. And the Kalamazoo River describes the eastern boundary, the northern boundary, and it used to describe the western boundary of this peninsula. But then when the Army Corps of Engineers straightened the mouth of the harbor there for Kalamazoo, the old river channel turned into an oxbow lagoon. Now that was over 100 years ago. And so everything now in the oxbow lagoon is naturalized. It still has a connection through a huge wetland that's on the Talmadge Woods property that provides water coming in and out, but it's cleaner than the Kalamazoo River. And so what they found in terms of fish diversity is that the fish diversity and the fish species are much greater and much better than the Kalamazoo River. Along the wetland that lines the shoreline, we have rare species. So between the birds and the butterflies and the frogs and the river and the wetland, it's a very, very diverse community. This area provides a fantastic example of an intact dune ecosystem. Everything from undeveloped Lake Michigan shoreline all the way up to these high wooded back dune ridges. And when you look at it on an aerial perspective, you see this green ribbon running alongside the Blue Lake shoreline. And what that does is it provides habitat not only for native species that live here year-round, but for migratory species that are going much further north.
I think the fact that there's this collaboration between the Land Conservancy, the city, and Oxbow really shows that there's a way to put a conservation easement in place that is agreeable to lots of different entities and serves a lot of different needs, whereby the land's preserved, Oxbow, benefits from having the unique environment preserved. Certainly the city benefits from having the natural landscape preserved and tourism and those sorts of things. And then the Land Conservancy is fulfilling its mission as well of making sure that land remains untouched.
When thinking of scenic areas, metropolitan regions may not be the first to come to mind, but there are ways to balance both humans and wildlife. This provides opportunities for the public to enjoy and protect wildlife habitat and live in a biologically diverse world, even in a suburbanized area.
I had been involved in a number of environmental groups over the years, so I always had an interest in conservancy work, and I thought it'd be great to start a conservancy for Southeast Michigan, and got a couple friends together and we incorporated, and the rest is history. So far the Conservancy has protected over 2,400 acres, and we cover the 7-county Southeast Michigan area, and we've protected land in 5 of those counties. We've had a great relationship with Washtenaw County. We first bought 131 acres at the LaFridge Woods Nature Preserve in 1993, and after that time we bought 5 additional properties. We purchased 64 acres of this 325-acre preserve back in 2003, and we were fortunate that the county contributed $225,000 towards our purchase price, and they secured a conservation easement over that property. So now the property totals 325 acres. So it's one of the largest privately purchased nature preserves in Southeast Michigan.
Typically, Parks and Recreation Commissions are focused on recreation. They own golf courses and water parks and playgrounds and things like that. Washtenaw County Parks has been an organization that has focused on natural areas, preserves. Our program works by itself to some degree, but we work best when we have partners. We've collaborated with Southeast Michigan Land Conservancy a number of times.
We have probably 2 or 3 miles of mowed trails, nature trails on the property, so people can walk through the wetland areas, the field areas, and the woods. We have a great interest in not only land conservation, but in urban revitalization. Now, this land is very close to intense urban development. And I think as we have increases in population, we actually need more land set aside for the public.
Just a mile down the road are some very dense developments. These are almost immediately accessible. It's possible for people to walk into these properties and within a few minutes of their home, experience a very natural environment and enjoy that. Just to our east is Wayne County, the Detroit area, Canton Township especially developing very quickly. Just to our west is the city of Ann Arbor, tremendously growing community. Being able to provide sort of a green buffer in this area is not only good for the plant and animal species, it's a terrific asset in the community.
In the grand scheme of things, it's just a drop in the bucket, but I think it's a real good model of what can be done elsewhere. And I think all of us are very proud of what we've accomplished. And we realize there's a lot more to do, but that's what makes it interesting, is we're always trying to see what we can do that will better what we have already.
A drop in the bucket can turn into much more when people come together and protect Michigan's world-class natural resources. At times, protecting the land also honors memories.
I don't know anyone who loved this area as much as Jeff Lamont. So the very least we could do for him, for all that he had given all of us, and for the great joy he had in this area, was to find a way to keep his memory alive.
I believe it was August of 2007. I got a call from Bridget and said, we've been preserving acreage in Leelanau County in our son's name, and I have a son who has cancer and is not going to live much longer, and we'd like to preserve enough acreage so that he could get a Leelanau preserver tile and have it mounted on the Leland Village Green. And you know, she told me a little more about the story, and I was so touched by it.
The note and the photograph of what a tile would look like showed up within a week, and it arrived at home, and I remember it as though it was yesterday, going into the hospital saying, Jeff, we have some mail, and we're going to give you an early 21st birthday present. He said, what's this? What's this? And I said, open it up, and he just looked at it. And he knew, and we knew what it really meant in many ways. Jeff is the youngest of our two children. He emulated his older brother, Michael. The best word to describe him is fearless. He would go anywhere, he would try anything, he would talk to anybody. He just plunged in. Whatever it took, Jeff wanted to be in the mix of it. My father, who first introduced us to Michigan, loved the concept of hikes. He kept that tradition going up here, and then my husband Tom loved when we were all up here together to take Michael and Jeff and say, okay guys, we're going to go explore. And you never knew where they would end up on Leelanau Peninsula. They all came back telling stories, and Jeff Lamont just couldn't get the stories out fast enough. He was exuberant about being up here. And there is no place he loved more than this area of the world.
Every time they came to the cottage on the shores of Lake Michigan, they passed a piece of property with a sign that said for sale on it, and Jeff, the uncle, got the idea that maybe, just maybe, we could work together to protect this property forever in his nephew's name. I knew when the Lamonts and the later families contacted me that this particular project was one that had to happen. We had to find a way.
About 8 days before he died, I sat down on the couch, and Michael Lamont was there and Tom was there, and I said, Jeff, I want to tell you something really cool. And I told him about the people at the Conservancy and what Jeff later, Uncle Jeff, was up to, and our friends the Mansons and so many other people. And he just smiled. You know, he didn't have to say anything. We didn't have to say anything more, but I believed that he really, really knew what was going on. And you have to believe. And you have to believe that right now he knows that this is saved, and that other kids like Jeff and Mike and their dads will be hiking through here just as he did.
This is a particularly rich property biologically. It is where upland hardwood forest and mix of conifer forest meets a very significant wetland habitat. And the Leelanau Peninsula is like a large funnel for migratory birds in the spring and fall. This is a strategic spot in that funnel for birds before they fly over the big water to the upper peninsula to rest and feed and ready themselves for that flight. Without places like this, those migratory bird species would be threatened. So this is important not just from a social viewpoint, from a family viewpoint, from a community viewpoint, but certainly from a biological viewpoint and wildlife survival.
When you stand here today and you look around and you listen, and I know that Jeff Lamont hiked right through here, and here we are today talking about him. And for a mother, it means a great deal to me.
Well, I think the chance as an individual to contribute to the efforts by the various organizations that are working on land preservation is very fulfilling. You get a real sense of accomplishment because you get to see very physically something that's preserved and protected and remaining for future use. But at the same time, you get a real personal experience.
I think for us it was about thinking about what our family has done for 100 years here. Canoeing, hiking, fishing, hunting, and thinking about all the generations ahead of us that will be doing the same thing and have for the last 5 generations, and how special that is that they'll be able to continue to do that.
It seems that if you come to a beautiful area like this, it makes sense to give something back. And for us, we felt all along that we had an obligation to give back and preserve some of this land that we've come to enjoy for over 30 years.
There's so few of these parcels, so few natural pieces left that are undeveloped, that I think we have to treasure what we have because we won't ever get it back again, and we have to preserve what's here. I just think it's the best thing you can do for Michigan, for the area, and for yourself.
I think it's definitely something to consider, and the benefits, there really are no downsides to it. Why wouldn't you do it?
It requires a lot of people to save land, to save it for nature, and it requires a good amount of people learning about and understanding and caring that the land be saved. The more people who care about it and show that they care about it through supporting efforts like the Conservancy, the more land that will be saved and the more places there will be for wildlife near where we live.
To purchase a DVD copy of the Michigan Land Conservation Series, send a check or money order for $19.95 plus $5 shipping and handling to CMU Public Broadcasting in care of Michigan Land Conservation Offer, 1999 East Campus Drive, Mount Pleasant, Michigan, 48859. Or call 1-800-727-9268 to order by credit card.